Spent 14 months making decisions about my business in the same way most people do, based on whatever showed up next. A course looked promising, I tried it. A strategy was working for someone I followed, I tried that. A new platform, a new tactic, a new approach, I tried everything. 500 pieces of content later, I had one client to show for it. And it wasn't because I wasn't smart or didn't work hard enough. It's because every single decision I made was trial and error disguised as strategy. Today, we're talking about what changed when we stopped guessing and started filtering, and the 5 decisions that simplified everything and actually made us money. LD coached me through the shift that produced 75,000 in 10 days. But here's why he's the person to talk to about decision making. He's taken multiple businesses to 6 figures across 5 different industries. And for a while, he did the same thing most of us do: trial and error, grinding through, seeing what works, moving to the next thing. He's been in the trenches of what approach. He's been in the trenches of that approach longer than almost anybody I know. But at some point, something changed. He got obsessed with a different question: not will this work, but how do I know this is aligned before I start, so I don't have to guess. That shift from trial and error to alignment first is literally what today's episode is about. And he's had thousands of coaching calls helping people make that same shift. And if it wasn't for him, I wouldn't be here today. LD, take it from here.
Sweet, sweet man. And with Ryan, they're like, in this series, it's been absolutely awesome. But one thing is for certain, like Ryan is one of the, hardest working people that I know. And the dude's like a machine in how he approaches things, man. So I would put him in that elite, like all-star class of people that I've worked with over the last 12 years that they've just gotten really, really good at getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And if you've never really leaned heavily into that, then you wouldn't really understand how rare it is to be able to, not just know someone like that, but to also be able to work with them at a high level, man. So, him making the big leap that he's been able to make is, it's nothing short of amazing. But going from 500 posts, most people don't even get to that point, especially saying 500 over 14 months in one client. But then making the adjustments when things were called out, when the optimizations were laid out in front of him, he picked them up, made those optimizations, and obviously everyone knows what happened after that. 15 clients in 10 days, 75K, Stripe account just looking different, right? So it's awesome stuff. And on top of everything, it's just been an absolute pleasure, getting to see him get so much better at the things that he would openly say, I'm not very good at these things, and blah, 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 blah. Well, it's kind of tough for him to say that now because he is actually pretty good at a lot of those things that he was, kind of weak at when we first started out. Right. So, both of us have spent years making decisions the hard way. And again, I want to be ultra clear: trial and error, there is nothing wrong with trial and error. I literally wouldn't be here. I wouldn't have the capacity to be able to coach people through various different areas of life and their business and stuff if I hadn't gone through all of those different things of trial and error. For me, most of it was fun. It was me just saying, "Oh man, that's interesting. That's something that I want to pursue, and I'll go do it, make 6 figures, reach like some level of achievement or award or something like that, and then I'll look around and say, hey, what's next?" Right? So I have it and like I like to explore by nature. But you get to a point where it's like, well, I'd rather not explore. I would much rather say, all right, what's going to align best? And maybe you're that person that's like, I don't want to explore out of the gate. I want to do what's going to work, right? So it's one of those things where what we're going to be walking you through today is what happens when what happens when you stop trying to kind of figure it out through volume, trial and error, and you start running everything through the 5 decisions, right? And those 5 decisions simplified not only our business, but it simplified, where the money came from in the business. And it also put us in a position to not have to play the well, is this going to be the next thing that actually works, or is this going to be just another one of those things that's kind of a drop in the bucket, so to speak? So, um, yeah, man, I'm super, super excited about today's episode, man.
Well, LD, you said something that I had to sit with. You said experts who start businesses have the lowest probability of profitability, not because they lack skill, but because they refuse to start where the money actually is. They'd rather launch a consultancy that looks impressive than build a small business, than build a small book of business that's actually profitable. So, can you break that down for us?
Yeah, absolutely, man. So, the way most people make decisions about their business is trial and error, like we've kind of alluded to already. It's like, and it's not random though. Like, I think that that's a very important distinction. It's like, it's driven by proximity and their algorithm, whether it's on Instagram, YouTube, whatever. Something shows up in their feed, it looks viable, they try it. It doesn't work, something else shows up, they try it. Right? But here's where it gets worse for people with real expertise. Like, because when you have 10 to 20 years of professional experience, you don't just try random things. You try things that match where you see yourself, right? And you want to launch at a level that reflects your career, which means it's going to be some high level consultancy, maybe an agency, a high ticket program where it's like you want to charge people $20,000 because you saw invoices for the company that you were in that was like for 50 to $500,000, and you're like, oh, I can definitely do 20, right? And I'm not saying that you can. I'm just saying that you don't have the other pieces in place that the corporate company that you were working for had in place. So, yo, you want something that feels worthy of your resume overall, and I'm not knocking you for it. It's like you can want whatever you want, but I'm talking about what is the market going to respond to, and that's why it's a trap, right? Because the thing that would actually make you profitable, a small book of business, 5 to 10 clients you serve really, really well, revenue coming in while you learn the entrepreneurial side of things, that kind of feels like a step down. And again, you went so long in corporate being known for X, Y, and Z and having a certain level of status associated with that. Again, it doesn't match the status. So you end up skipping it. What do you end up doing instead? You go buy another course, you research another model, you evaluate another vehicle, because that feels like progress without having to start small. And I can promise you right now, I am so grateful that Ryan was not like that, because if he was, the entire story of 75K in 10 days would never have come to fruition. But we'll kind of get into that in a bit. And what we found is that the fastest path to profit for someone with real expertise isn't launching at the level you think you deserve. It's making 5 decisions that align with your business, with who you actually are, and starting where the money is, not where your ego wants you to be. And when you know who you are, who you serve, what vehicle fits your strengths, what model fits your life, and what fuels all of it, most of the options disqualify themselves. You stop evaluating 47 things. And the starting point that actually makes money stops feeling like a step down, because you can see it's the first step in a much bigger plan. That's 5 decisions. It's not 45, it's not 47, it's just 5. And today we're going to walk through what happens when you make them and what it costs when you don't. So, Ryan, with you having those 20 years of making those high stakes decisions at Verizon and everything, man, and when you went out on your own, like, you had every skill needed to build something profitable, but instead started where the money was. Um, Deploying, kind of what you already knew. Instead of doing that, you spent 14 months trying to become a content creator in affiliate stuff and master resale rights. Like, what was driving that decision overall, man?
Ego. And I didn't see it as ego at the time. I thought it was being strategic, but looking back, that's exactly what it was. When I left Verizon, I had 20 years of experience across sales leadership, operations, technology, and digital product strategy. And I'd worked with companies like being the bridge between companies like Verizon and Apple, Amazon, Samsung, Google, like some of the literally biggest companies in the world. And the most logical starting point taking that expertise and serving 5 or 10 people directly, building a small book of business around what I already knew, that felt like going backwards, or it felt like a step down. It felt like too much of what I was just most recently walking away from. So it was, part of me felt like I was too qualified for that, because I didn't understand the nuances and the difference between doing it in a corporate setting and doing it in this setting, and how much I would actually enjoy that, and how much it would actually give me fulfillment and light me up, and give me a reason to be excited about waking up every day on work days, and actually, as crazy as it sounds, like on the weekend looking forward to Monday. Like, that's such a foreign feeling, to anybody who works a corporate job, unless you're one of those people who's really lucky and have an amazing corporate job, but you almost never look forward to Monday morning. Like, Sunday scaries exist for a reason. So content creation felt like what real entrepreneurs do, in a way, building a brand. I mean, you see Alex Hormozy and you see Gary Vee, like they make it look so easy, and and like it's the right thing to do. Growing a following, launching something that scales, that looked like the right level. That looked like the thing that I should slide into. So I skipped the thing that would have made me money immediately, and I chased the thing that matched, like, the vision of my self-image, that I thought, like, this is what I need to go do. I've been an overachiever my entire life. So that was the no-brainer path that I gravitated towards. 500 posts later, I had one client to show for that, all of that work. And the thing that I had skipped, deploying what I already knew in a room where I was valued through one strategic partnership, that produced 75K in 10 days. It just took me 14 months to figure out how to get there. So the starting point I was too proud to take was the launch pad. I just couldn't see it because my status filter was blinding me. It was in the way.
Yeah. Yeah, makes 100% sense, man. And I appreciate you sharing it in that way, because I think that that's one of my first times ever hearing you really articulate from there to here. So good stuff. And you're not alone. I've seen this time and time again, especially anyone who's coming from like a big name company and they're making that transition out. It's the majority, not the minority, for sure. And you know, one thing that usually happens in that is when things end up not working out, they go and get more information. But where do they go get it from? They don't just pull it randomly out of a hat. It comes from proximity and their algorithm, right? Like, what big names are they following? Do they have some upcoming conference, some upcoming webinar, summit, something like that? They're looking for it. And there's nothing wrong with, trying to seek out what's out there. But like, even me, like for digital marketing, copywriting, all of these things, if I would have never fell into the Russell Brunson funnel and click funnels and all of that, I would have never started my copywriting agency. So I need people to understand and be super clear. Like, we're not knocking trial and error per se, but we're talking to the people that they're ready to not let trial and error be the driving force in it overall, man. So again, the problem in this scenario is it was never knowledge. It was that one filter that we were using was status. You did it, I did it, plenty of other people do it. And that's not a business decision, it's an ego decision. And so alignment first replaces that. And the filter isn't status anymore at that point, it's fit. We don't care about status. Put it on the shelf temporarily. Like, I would rather be unknown and well paid rather than like everyone sees me in this high lane of status, but I'm living paycheck to paycheck, right?
Well,
Like, that's
I think that's the biggest distinction between corporate and entrepreneurship, is that status does not equal money. Like, those two things are not connected, and a lot of times it's the reverse.
yep, yep, absolutely, man, absolutely. So um it's like starting where the money is stops, like feels like a step down because you can't see is just the launch pad and not the ceiling. Even with market penetration stuff, it's like, hey, we can penetrate the market, in one way. And then once we penetrate the market and we're able to realize a certain level of profit, then we'd be able to pivot into other marketing channels and things along those lines, man. So, you know, one easy way to look at it is like, think about a doctor who just finished their residency. They got 12 years of training, and someone says, "Hey, go work in a clinic for 6 months, for 6 months first." And they're like, no, I think I'm gonna go do my own thing. And it's like, all right, you know, you could go do what I'm talking about and go work in a clinic first, see how everything works, blah, 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 blah. But instead of doing that, they go the other route and they go start their own practice right out of the gate. And, half of those usually are underwater in about 18 months. So again, it's not necessarily about skill, it's about being willing to start where the money is instead of where your resume says that you should be. Like, and even with the whole 15 clients, and we've talked about this offline, but it's like when those 15 people raised their hand, like I remember you being like, wait a minute, like 15 people, like this is good and it's going to be helpful. But I had no idea that there were so many people out there that actually wanted this skill set and expertise, and they needed help in the online space. And they were willing to value that help to the degree of putting down thousands of dollars right then and there. So there's something to be said about that for sure, man. So Ryan, you had every option available when you left Verizon. You could have done consulting, start your own agency, SaaS, content, like you could have gone anywhere, man. Like, walk us through how you were actually choosing between those options before the five decisions and what changed after, man.
Yeah, before the 5 decisions framework, here's honestly how I was choosing. It was whatever showed up next. I mean, your analysis, the stuff you're talking about, like once those things get into your algorithm, like that couldn't have been more spot on. And I don't mean it metaphorically. I mean, my Instagram feed, my YouTube recommendations, like whatever the last person I followed was doing, that was my strategy. If a course looked promising, then I bought it and I tried it. Someone I respected was doing affiliate marketing, then I looked into that. Content creation was everywhere. Every guru, every video, every program said build a personal brand, post every day, 3 times a day. So that's what I did. When a new tactic showed up, I pivoted to that. I was making decisions based on proximity and algorithm, plain and simple. And whatever was closest and loudest, whatever popped up in my face and my feed the most number of times that day, that's what I went with next. And what made it even worse was because I had real experience, because I had coming off of a 20-year career, I wasn't just grabbing at anything. I was filtering, but the filter, like we talked about before, was status instead of fit. And I was asking, does this feel like something worthy of my background instead of does this match who I actually am, who I serve, and what model works for my life? So consulting felt worthy, content creation felt worthy. Building a small book of business, doing what I was already great at, that, like we talked about before, it felt like a step down. So I was trial and erroring through options that matched my ego and skipping the option that matched my reality. And every time something didn't work, I didn't question the approach. I went and got more information, another course, another strategy, another framework to evaluate. After the 5 decisions, all of that collapsed because once I knew who I was serving, where my competitive advantage actually was, what vehicle fit my strengths, and what model fit my life, and most of all, what fueled it, most of the options I'd been agonizing over, disqualified themselves. I didn't need to evaluate 1,000 things anymore. The filter did the work for me, and the starting point that actually made money, one strategic partnership, deploying what I already knew, stopped feeling like a step down because I could see it was the launch pad, not the ceiling.
Yeah, absolutely, man.
So you've made the 5 decisions framework central to everything that you teach. When you're walking somebody through those 5 decisions for the first time, what's the moment where the fog clears for most of them?
Yeah. Um, I would say for sure that the fog clears when people are able to see that there's an actual demand for what they're offering if it's packaged correctly. So we take that inventory of what they have and what's their competitive advantage, and then we look at people out in the market that not only would appreciate it, but they would also have some level of competitive advantage when it came to the dynamic of even approaching those people, whether it's online or with their content or what have you. But when they see not how many other people are out there doing something similar, it's when they see that this is something that, man, people are asking for this right now. So it's when they truly see the opportunity. A little bit happens when they start to see that this could be viable, like, oh wow, I could actually create, you know, not a cookbook, but I could create a cooking system around me making like St. Lucian food like Agatha did, right? It's like she didn't have to become a content creator at that point. She could lean into the 20, 30, 40 plus years of cooking this amazing style of food. And when she saw that that was a possibility, it was like, okay, we might have something here. But then when she saw how many people out there actually wanted to learn how to make this food, but they didn't want to have to go through some cookbook. They wanted something tangible. And it was, again, it was about packaging it. You don't need to become an amazing St. Lucian cook in order to create five dishes that would, be St. Lucian dishes. So what if they could create five dishes in 1 hour? People will take that over a cookbook any day of the week, man. So I think that understanding that reality is super super important, and that's why in almost every episode, one of our biggest goals is just getting people to open their eyes to what's actually available and what people want, not what is being served already in the market, but what people actually want based on the complaints that they make as it stands in the market right now. So I know that we have our first Reddit story coming up, man, so let's go ahead and jump into that.
Absolutely. Before we do that, I want to add one thing. Especially this is especially I think applicable to experts, like the kind of people like you and me who are just sitting on this wealth of experience and knowledge. And I think one of the common misconceptions or false beliefs that people have is that they think, oh, just because of AI, because it's so easy for anybody to just go and look up, type into ChatGPT or Claude or Perplexity, St. Lucian food. They think like they don't even, it never occurs to them that they're sitting on a gold mine if it's packaged in the right way to the right person. Information is free and it's unlimited, and anybody can go and find information in seconds on any topic, but it's being able to take that information and know what to do with it. That's where expertise, because of the evolution of information that's happened over the past couple of years with AI, the expertise of knowing what to take and do with the information becomes 1,000 times more valuable. I never for 1,000 years thought that entrepreneurs would pay me thousands of dollars to manage through them through the process of creating a product ecosystem. But that's because it became second nature to me. But that's something that became second nature over 20 years. So I just that thought sparked in my mind when you said that, and I had to go on that diatribe before getting into this first Reddit story.
No, no,
Uh,
hold on, Robert, because like you brought up such an integral piece, like the 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 last attachment to it, bro, is how when we created what's called her market penetration offer, like the offer that she would penetrate the market with, we created it with her target audience in mind. And one thing about Caribbean people as a whole is they value like higher education and careers. So her target audience were women that had put all of their time and energy towards, getting an education, building a career, blah, blah, blah. And a lot of them never learned how to cook. So
mm,
now they're at that stage in life where they want to get married and do all of these things, but they keep meeting Mr. Right, and then they meet Mr. Right's parents, and the parents are giving them the thumbs down because they don't know how to cook, right? But if they could learn how to make just a couple of dishes, and when they go to meet the parents, they bring those dishes and they taste authentic, that's think about the problem that's being solved at that point. That's what made it so powerful of, not just her creating another cookbook or doing this or doing that. It's like we're solving highly valuable problems. This is not only like, oh, I'm getting married. This is like the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with, right?
Yeah, I'm I was fortunate enough to find to marry somebody who has both of those skills, an amazing career in a very well paying job, but she can also cook. In fact, she can literally, like, we play this game sometimes, or she plays this game sometimes, where it's like our pantry will get down to so low. She's like, "What can I?" Let's play the game. What can I make with what's left in the pantry? And I
Yeah.
can tell you, I'm not just saying this because she's gonna watch it. She has never disappointed me with anything that she's cooked since I've known her. But on the other side of that, the reason why that's important is because I can make a handful of things, but for the most part, I'm allergic to cooking. So I can be the first person to raise my hand and say that reading a recipe and directions in a cookbook does not in any way, shape, or form translate into being able to make a delicious meal. So that just reinforces and brings everything home, and that how valuable that expertise is when you're the person who bridges the gap between the knowledge and the execution. So,
Yep.
all right. So now the first Reddit story. This one is titled "Need Advice for Analysis Paralysis." This is a dentist who's earning $350,000 a year. They That was their net. He says he's perpetually stuck in a rotation of business ideas. Every morning, excuse me, he wakes up uh, drawn to a different idea. One day it's fitness content, the next day it's international charity work, then dental media. He cycles through different evaluation criteria: enjoyment one day, profitability the next, and then feasibility the day after that. In the comments, he reveals something that tells you everything. He says, quote, "I'm most excited about helping kids, then fitness, then dental. Really not excited about just dental stuff alone. He already knows the answer, but he just can't commit." What are your
Yeah.
thoughts on that?
Yeah, man. This is, a really good problem to have because, like, just simply put, like, he's able to rotate through all of these and like cycle through perpetually because, like, he has 350K coming in, right? So he's not really, there's no urgency. He's not really feeling any of this. But in his own words, he said kids, fitness, dental. Um, and he also talked about being like an Ironman athlete, and so it's like if we were gonna bring it all together, I wouldn't look at, hey, well, let's make all of these things work together. But what I would say is we need to, like, when anytime there's kids involved, there's so many different directions you can go because kids are obviously developing. So I think that he needs to get in inside of some level of a community, um, where there are other people who have, made similar decisions. But even before he does that, he needs to sit with the five decisions, man. Like he's gotta get clear on that because right now status is still kind of a filter, right? Because sometimes people want to work with kids because it's like, I'm doing well enough that I can kind of give back in this way, and that's totally fine. But it's like, what what can you do now that you're going to be like, okay, if I keep doing this for 5 years, I'm going to be totally excited about it, just like I was in day one, right? Like for me, it's like being in this space, it's been upwards of 11, almost 12 years now. And dude, I don't know if you see it, but I'm still excited about the fact that it's like people like you that I've been able to kind of help in my own way, and Agatha and Cindy. And like I can just keep naming off names of people that were, struggling over here. And now even if they're not where they want to be financially yet in their business for whatever reason, because everyone has their own reasons, these people are making money now. And there's something to be said about that. And they're happy in the way that they're making money. So at that point, it's not a if, it's a when they decide to have that escape velocity and really, really get things off of the ground, man. So I think that, again, like forcing that person to sit down, answer those 5 questions, and be willing to punt temporarily the other things for the goal of getting one thing off of the ground and then maybe integrating the other things later. That would be my recommendation to that person. What about you, man? Did you have anything on that?
I just had something to add to what you were saying. I mean, that you have this innate ability, and it's like I've seen the wall of social proof when you showed me one of your funnel landing pages. But if there's one thing about you, like nobody could ever argue with what everything that just came out of your mouth if they have seen your wall of social proof, because it's just one after another after another after another of people just solidifying everything that you said, like your ability to hone in on what that right thing is, that is the intersection of the passion and something that, can support the lifestyle that they want to live. So coming back to this dentist, I mean, that's the tough thing. Like, I mean, $350,000 on the one hand, it sounds like a lot of money, but your lifestyle evolves with your income and your status.
Yeah,
So, I think I agree with everything you said. I think at the same time, it's important to factor in the capacity angle and what is the long-term goal with the dental practice and that element of it. And, is that the thing that is going to continue to pay the bills? And then how do the passion projects, if you will, get layered into the mix? Because I'm not going to say it's not impossible, but it would be difficult to take, the skill that has made this person most of their money and be able to replicate that pivoting into fitness or doing something for kids. So I think for this, it's sort of like a balancing act in that it feels like, I mean, I don't know the person obviously, but it feels like the other things are basically going to balance out their life so that they're living a balanced life, as opposed to I need to go and pick something that I'm going to make all of this money. And so I think, like, to tie it all together, this just solidifies how important it is to not just take a cookie cutter approach and to not just go after what every guru is telling you to do, because this story is the perfect example of a scenario where it probably doesn't have anything to do with money. It has probably has more to do with what the person is genuinely interested in, what brings them fulfillment in their life, and what is going to allow them to continue to do the thing that is obviously making them a considerable amount of money. But if it's the thing that they're least excited about, that's not going to last forever if you don't balance it with the things that you actually enjoy.
exactly. Absolutely, man. And that's a great segue into the reality that you can't out hustle a broken GPS, right? Like no matter if you drive faster, change lanes, take shortcuts, if the navigation is wrong, if you're like dental is the least thing, but it's what pays the bills and gives me the extra money. It's like, yeah, speed gets you to the wrong place quicker. And for this person, it would just be more cycling. So every course, every program, every new strategy basically equals driving faster. The GPS is still broken, man. And the 5 decisions are the GPS. And until those are locked in, more speed equals just more wasted miles. And I don't know if you ever traded in a pretty new vehicle. Like you have a 2025 Chevy Silverado with 200,000 miles on it. Like that, good luck. Like it's not going to be ideal at all, man. So um, I would say moving into the second part of this, man, you know, one of the most expensive things you can buy is another program that makes you feel informed but keeps you standing still. And a lot of this can come from, a lack of proximity, a lack of being held accountable, a lack of just true effort being put out in a quality way. And it really, really comes down to, like, some people believe that more research before committing is being smart, it's kind of doing due diligence. And to a certain degree, I would agree, but it's like, what are we really evaluating? And I think that that's where a lot of people get it wrong, because overall, wrong decisions equals wasted time, right? Analysis paralysis is a decision, right? When you choose not to decide, that's the same thing as basically choosing to stay where you are. And when it comes down to the money side of things, man, most people believe money is best spent on more knowledge, more courses, books, and masterminds. And every course adds to the pile. There's more frameworks, more voices, more things to evaluate. And I think back to that day where you kind of told me about your background and everything, and I was like, dude, all right, we're not doing anything else. We're going this way. Like, I didn't even, and obviously I apologize, hindsight, but like, I was so adamant, I didn't even leave it up to you. It's like, dude, we're not doing any of this ever again. Like, we're going this way. And I think that, um, hindsight, I can look at that and I can say, man, that was super helpful in that moment, because I was so mad, like, not mad at you, but just frustrated. It's like, dude, we have this right here. We need to do something with it, man. So money spent on a decision making framework, aka having someone that you are confident and trust saying, no, we need to go this way, that's already gone there, right? Like, it eliminates that paralysis. It eliminates you having to make all of these decisions around which way to go. You know, I think that for me, it's like, it's super, super important. Like, you can even look at it like, if there's a therapist who, or if there's a person who spends like $14,000 on a therapist to decide whether to eat lunch or not. And at some point, like, you have to eat, and the decision produces clarity. Like, hey, did it fill me up? Do I need something else? Blah 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 blah. Like, people spend thousands of dollars trying to feel ready when ready never really comes. Ready is a feeling and not a fact overall, man. So for you, Ryan, like, you spent time and money on courses, tools, strategies, masterminds, inner circles, like coaching programs, trying to figure out the right answer. When you finally made that shift that produced 75K, like, was it because you found new information, or because you finally made a decision with the information you already had? Or was it me just kind of like, all right, come on, bro, we're going this way?
It was a decision. It was 100% a decision, and I've got to be really clear about this because I think it's probably the most important thing I'll say today in this episode. The shift that produces 75K didn't come from a new course. It didn't come from a new tactic. It didn't come from a hidden strategy that I finally discovered after 14 months of searching. The adjacent audience strategy wasn't secret information. The concept of deploying my existing expertise in the right rooms, it wasn't locked behind a paywall. It was something I'd heard you talk about on several occasions, but just probably didn't necessarily connect all the dots. But what really happened was when what really changed things and helped me make that decision is when it was the conversation you were just referencing. You sat me down and you asked the questions that I had been avoiding. You didn't ask me, have you tried this platform or have you read this book? You asked me, who are you actually serving? What did Verizon pay you to do? And if you took that credibility and pointed it at a different audience, what would that look like? Those aren't information questions. Those are decision questions. Those lead to decisions. And the moment that I stopped researching everything and just splitting hairs over decisions that didn't really matter and actually answered those core questions that I think are the critical questions for any entrepreneur to answer. Um, and I actually committed to a decision, everything moved forward and it hasn't stopped since. Not because I knew more. I think I knew everything that I needed to know in the beginning, the day that I left Verizon, but because I finally picked something, one decision about who I was serving, one decision about how I was going to reach them, one decision about which model fit my life. I mean, and then the 75,000 came from those decisions. It didn't come from the 500 posts or the courses or the 14 months of consuming random content. So if I'm honest, 80% of what I needed to know to make the 75K, I knew from day one. I just didn't have anyone forcing me to go with it.
Yeah. Yep. And that makes a lot of sense. It's like I knew it. I just didn't have anyone forcing me to go with it. And again, dude, I'll say it again. Like I apologize. Like kinda. Like dude, but I was just so frustrated in that moment. Like, dude, you're like Mr. Basketball and we're over here trying to play badminton. No.
I don't know who you're apologizing to because I don't need the apology. I think you've worked with me long enough to know that I, like a lot of people, I'm the person who needs that. I needed to hear that because the way that you said that, there was no other option, right? There was, for somebody who literally will die by analysis paralysis, they need the person to tell them that sort of thing with that level of confidence. That's what I needed to hear. I don't have a problem telling other people that they need to how they need to approach things with that level of confidence, but when it comes to myself, I can spin for months and years on the simplest of decisions if left to my own devices. So let me ask you this. If someone handed you $2,000 and they said, "This is my last business investment before I go back to corporate," what would you tell them to spend it on? And what would you tell them to absolutely not spend it on?
Okay. This is this is actually really, really good, man. So um just out of the gate, I would definitely tell them to spend it on uh proximity, a program that gives them proximity to at least one, I would say, but for 2K, I would want it to be two or more people that are they already are where I'm looking to go. They've already, kind of ran that race. I would That's how I would spend it. I wouldn't spend it on just more information. I wouldn't spend it on going to some conference or something like that. I would literally spend it on a program, a mastermind, an inner circle, something where I'm going to be able to, yes, get information, but more about getting in the proximity of the people who are where I want to be. And I think that that is going to be, super, super clutch. And, one really good way to look at any type of investment is the right investment narrows. The right investment reduces the amount of decisions that you need to make because, again, when you make the investment, this should bring you closer to clarity, right? The wrong investment gives you a gazillion things that you need to think about. Here's an example. Look at a school community, right? And you go to the classroom and there are 50 different modules, and each module has probably 8 hours worth of videos that you need to get through. So now you have to sift through all of this stuff and try and figure out what's going to, like, what do you need to be doing for your specific situation. And I think that it's that it's proximity. And I would make sure that that investment narrows the things that I need to think about, the actions that I need to take, and everything should be able to be put on one sheet of paper. Last 2000, you should be able to put everything that you need to do to move things forward on one sheet of paper, because it's never about having a bunch of different decisions. It's about dialing things in and making the simple daily actions what you put your focus on. It's going to get boring, but man, boring pays. Boring pays, boring pays for sure. So, yeah, let's go ahead and jump into the next Reddit story, man. And I'm actually really excited about this one, so let's do it.
All right, this one is related to startups. This is, and it's titled "Pre-Revenue. We spent 14K on founder coaching last year." So this is two first-time co-founders that spent 14,000 on a single founder coaching. That was 78% of their entire annual company budget. They had zero revenue for the full year. 90-minute sessions every 2 weeks. They kept pivoting and learning, but it never led to earning any actual revenue. The poster defends the investment. They say that having someone like a therapist to help them through it was a game changer. But the most revealing comment is buried in the thread. We don't really have friends or connections in the startup scene, so having a dedicated person to bounce ideas off has been invaluable. They weren't buying information, they were buying community and direction, and they paid $14,000 for it.
Yeah. And it's gonna sound a little crazy, but I'm not even mad at him, right? 78% of the budget. I think that might be, a little bit of a. You probably could have done a little better on that side of things, but this goes back to the reality of people starting in the negative, right? So these two co-founders, when it comes to all of the things that they would need to have in place in order to have a, profitable business, highly profitable business, helping them reach their financial goals, they probably are starting at negative 10,000. And that coaching 90-minute sessions every 2 weeks, that's not bad. I would prefer, something much more frequent. I would rather have three 30-minute sessions over the 2 week period, and where we jump on and, kind of knock things out, and then we dive into whatever the constraint is in that moment. But maybe that coaching program got them from negative 10,000 to negative 5,000. Right? Maybe they were 2 to 3 years out from having a highly profitable business as co-founders. So, as much as we can look at their decision, again, probably the biggest thing I would change is, like, you could have not spent 78% of the budget, but I'm a firm believer that, you know, like, no mistakes are made, timing happens. And Ryan, like, even if you would have showed up 5 years ago, I could not have gotten you to where you are now, because the timing just wasn't right for that. Maybe I wasn't in the negative, but I might not have been plus 200,000 at that point, right? I might have only been plus 50,000, and I could have helped you a little bit, but it wouldn't have been to the capacity where it's 75K in 10 days, man. So what are your thoughts on that, man?
Yeah, I think for these founders, I see myself sort of in their situation. Like the part specifically where they said that they don't have friends or connection in the startup scene, like that's the real tell here. It wasn't necessarily that they were buying coaching, but it was buying the community that you were talking about before. It was buying the proximity to the people who are living in the state that you ultimately want to get to, assuming that this coach was that fit that scenario. But they were really buying someone to process decisions with because they didn't have anybody else, and I did the same thing. The courses that I bought really weren't about the content. I mean, to the point you made earlier, like 80 hours of content is not bringing anybody clarity, because like consuming the content is one thing. Actually doing something with the content after you've spent 80 hours consuming or filtering through it or whatever the case may be is an entirely different story. And then if it's the wrong thing, you probably just wasted 3 months between consuming the content and actually trying to implement it. And especially, like, if you think about this scenario where it's every couple of weeks that they're having a connection point. I mean, when my progress really started to move forward, you and I were just talking about this earlier, was when I started meeting with you almost every single day. Like, that's when the dominoes really started to fall. That's what made the biggest difference in my situation. So the other thing was, the almost like a therapist line that in the post, like, it's this whole episode in one sentence. When your coach is functioning as your therapist, you don't have a coaching problem, you have a community and a decision making problem. You're paying someone to help you feel better about not deciding. And don't get me wrong, like, it's going to be necessary, especially when you're just starting out. Like, two people, brand new founders, don't have any experience, and don't have a support system, what do you think's going to happen? Like there's only so many paths to success, but yeah, 78% of their budget on coaching was zero revenue. I mean the price tag of the coaching, when anytime you say the word founder, I mean it almost automatically implies that they're, for in most cases that they're probably chasing a big number. If it's a, founder in the traditional sense, I think the meaning of that word has drifted, but the price tag itself is one thing, but 70%, 78% of their budget and no revenue, that's an entirely different thing. So if that was a product review at Verizon, that conversation would have been one sentence. You allocated the majority of your resources to an activity with zero measurable return. Shut it down and figure something else out. But when it's your own business and it's your own money, again, like this theme has recurred time and time again. You don't run the diagnostic. You tell yourself it's an investment in growth.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, man. And I would say to put a button on that is a quote, and or just a few words. The most dangerous kind of motion is the kind that feels like progress but produces nothing. And for most people, that's courses, like taking a bunch of notes at a conference, or doing some cohort for 3 days, and like you're learning a lot, you're showing up on Zoom and doing all these things, and it feels productive, but the revenue number hasn't changed. And yeah, it's not what it needs to be. There is no increase of traffic, leads, and sales overall. And yeah, there's definitely something to be said about that. So the question isn't am I learning, it's am I deciding, right? Deciding moves the number, learning feels safe. And that moves us into the third part, which is really going to be all about AI and technology, man. So clarity comes from self-knowledge. It's not from studying someone else's playbook. And I'll put a caveat on this. When you look at Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant, rest his soul, right? Like he studied Michael Jordan, and that's like he created his game around that. So there are instances where this can be highly valuable, but I think it's important to understand the alignment. It was alignment first, right? He said, "Oh, this is the style of player that I feel like I could be, and we play the same position, we have the same body type. Like all I have to do is model this." But again, alignment still came first overall. So, a lot of people believe clarity comes from studying what works for others and adapting, right? We've found that studying others is another form of avoidance. It's still looking outward. And the method that actually works is auditing what's already true about you. Like, what are your strengths, patterns, constraints, career data? Like, let that tell you what to build, right? Liftoff Lab, that came from us taking an inward look and saying, like, what can we build to be highly valuable and super helpful to our ideal target audience? And how can we do this in a way that it's going to work for everyone involved? How can we create a win-win-win? It didn't come from, well, hey man, AI is taking over, so it's like maybe we should create a community. Like, no, right? It's like maybe we should create a course around AI and Claude Code and blah 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 blah. Like, no, it's like how can we serve people at the highest clip who we want to serve? And with that, it's like if you haven't already realized it, we have a quiz that kind of helps bring clarity around how to look at things inward, and it'll give you some results that you'll be able to move forward with. The link for that is in the description, as well as there's a wait list for Liftoff Lab, right? And whoever's on that wait list, they're going to be the people who get first notice of the details, right? Like, what is it really all about? What are we going to be helping people do to take them to the next level and reach whatever goals it is that they have? What level of proximity are these people going to have to us as far as being able to help them do all of that? So if you want more information about that when it's available, definitely click the link in the description so that you'll be able to be one of the first to know. So it's super super important to understand that there are people out there that will be spinning their wheels for years versus moving forward in weeks. And I promise you, and I know you know it, one, because we did it, but you also see me do it with other people. And I know that you can do it with other people as well, because I've seen those, those 15 clients make significant levels of progress. But this is true. If someone raises their hand and allows you to grab them right here and just take them on a walk, they're going to move forward from that scenario. Again, moving forward in weeks is 10 times better than just spinning around for years. So, and with you specifically, because you've helped me tremendously, but with having AI as a force multiplier, man, not just making decisions for you, but extracting patterns from your own data that you can't see inside it. The mirror without the blind spots. Just this, I would say, just the way that we use AI in what we do, but how like you've taken me from like, a snot-nosed 5-year-old kid to like, I feel like a teenager in AI these days, man, especially with everything in Claude and that type of stuff. But it's one of those things where, you know, reading someone else's diary trying to figure out your own life is wild, right? Their entries and their struggles, it's still you reading their story and not yours. And I want you to look at your diary as like your career, your resume, your 10 to 20 years. Like nobody's nobody's asked you to read it out loud and take that and go and create something awesome. And AI changes this drastically. Like even if you just jumped on Zoom and recorded it and just, talk to yourself, or had AI, give you 30 questions that would help you flesh these things out. Like even if you did that and took that recording, took the transcript and gave it to AI and said, "Hey man, this is what came out of that. Help me figure out what the next move would be." AI doing the extraction is going to help you make better decisions overall, man. So, Ryan, what's the biggest decision making mistake you see smart, super experienced people make when they're trying to build a business? And like, what's that thing that keeps them stuck the longest?
That's a great question. Um, so the biggest decision making mistake I see smart, experienced people make is just making it shockingly to the theme of this episode. It's related to decisions. The decision of what to focus on, which path to go down. If I think about the clients that I have that have been the most successful, when I first started working with them, they had a million and one ideas. They had no shortage of passion, they had no shortage of expertise, they had no shortage of genius, but they just couldn't decide which thing to go and focus on first. And if I think about the client that I have that has been the most successful, Shannon, she already had multiple successful businesses. She had a farm. She had a rental property on Cape Cod. Like this is a person. I mean, it feels like the story of the dentist, right? This is a person that's coming to me, and it on the surface, it's like they already have everything. So why do you want to do something else on top of that? Like, but it was a passion thing. It was a fulfillment thing. And so there were just so many things that she was interested in. It was honing in on the one thing that was the hardest part for her. So but we kind of went back and forth for a while. But we ultimately landed on, she's very creative and has always been an early adopter of technology, and the way that we crossed paths was through the same influencer that was the partner that led to, the 15 clients in 10 days. And so it ended up being creating visual, really not even just visual, but marketing assets using AI. And so once we honed in on that, like that probably wasn't even even though it was obvious, like, my area of expert, my thing was obvious. It wasn't on her radar.
Mm.
It wasn't it wasn't something that stood out, but it was like, well, you've been dabbling in this, you're really good at it, you have this innate ability to explain things to people and just really teach people. Plus you have the willingness and desire to want to help people. So when you put those two things together, well, why don't you lean into that? And now less than a year later since we started working together, she's made over $100,000 doing that.
Yeah.
Like that's crazy. Because that almost never happens when you talk about a brand new business. Like, sure, it happens for some people, but it almost never happens to somebody who wakes up one day and decides that they want to go do a thing. But the common denominator is it's like if the biggest decision making mistake that I see them make is choosing one thing, on the other side of that is like once they decide to do a thing, there's nothing that can stop them. So that I think it's when those two things, I feel like it's common for the person who has the problem deciding what to do
Hmm.
to be paired with having that trait that once they decide what it is, then there's nothing that's going to get in their way. There's nothing that's going to stop them. There's nothing that's going to prevent them from being successful in that.
Got you. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and I love the example, um, because like she's someone who's like a trooper who will just grind it out, but you started to help her make that transition into doing things that have more alignment, and it's really really working out for her, man. So I want to ask you another question actually, because you know instead of jumping into a Reddit story or something like that, um and yeah, this is gonna be good, but everything that we have going on right now, what would you say is the decision that you're avoiding right now? Like, what would you change if you just made it this week? Like, what does that look like, bro?
The decision that I'm avoiding, and this is nothing new to me. I mean, it's a consistent theme throughout my entire life, but in personal, professional, it's it's avoiding letting go of control. And I know exactly where it comes from, like I said, because it's something I've struggled with my entire life. But it's the thing that made me successful for 20 years in my career. At Verizon, I was the systems guy. I was the person who could see every moving piece, understand how they connected, and make sure that they all work together. And that's what got me from sales leadership to operations to technology to leading digital product strategy with those enormous companies. I mean, most people don't make that career progression where, like, when I started with the company, I was literally a temporary employee. I was the person who stood at the door and greeted people. And then to be on the other side of 20 years to be the person who is facilitating digital product strategy between multi-billion dollar companies, that almost doesn't happen. But um it comes from being the person who touches everything and makes sure nothing falls through the cracks, and that has always been my superpower. And I brought that exact instinct into this business, and where I'm trying to build the systems, create the content, manage the operations, serve my accelerator clients in that program, build Liftoff Lab with you, produce this series, and on top of all of that, be present for my wife and kids all on part-time hours. Because in my head, if I'm not the one touching it, then it won't be done right, or it won't be done the way that I do it, or it'll fall apart. And so here's the thing that I know intellectually, but I haven't fully accepted yet, is that instinct is no longer a strength. Not at this stage. It's a bottleneck. It's a constraint. It is the thing that made me great inside of the thing that made me great inside of corporate structure with hundreds of people and defined roles and unlimited resources. I mean, working for a company that has more money than God. Um, it's the thing that's going to break this if I keep holding on to every single piece, because that's what's actually happening, is everything gets a diluted version of me. My clients get 80% of my focus instead of 100. This series gets squeezed into whatever margin is left. My wife and kids get what's left over after all of it, and I'm stressed not because any one piece of that is hard, but because I'm carrying all of it and refusing to put any of it down. So the decision I'm avoiding is deciding what I'm not going to hold anymore, what I'm going to quit. I'm not quitting anything, but what I'm going to hand off and what I'm going to systemize, what I'm going to let be imperfect, so that things that actually need me, the things that only I can do, get the real version of me instead of the stretched thin version. So, and if I made that decision this week, like actually sat down and identified 5 or 10 things that that someone else could do, or I mean AI could do, the things that really don't really need to exist yet, then I would probably free up 10 hours a week. And if those 10 hours wouldn't go to more work, they'd go to doing fewer things, but at a higher level. And honestly, the people around me, you, my clients, my wife, my kids, would all get a better version of me, not because I'm doing more, but because I stopped pretending that I could carry all of it at the same quality simultaneously.
Drop the mic right there, bro. Drop the mic. Let's go, man. Um, awesome stuff. Awesome, awesome. So, um, it brings up a pretty good quote by Joseph Campbell. It's the cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek, right? And man, it's crazy how that works. So, um, we'll kind of bring this in for a landing. But yeah, I think that as we do that, I think some people grossly underestimate just this reality. Sometimes you need someone at the entrance, and all they need to say is some version of, I've been in there. It's not as dark as you think. Let's go. Not, you're free to go. Let's go. And I would say that those two words, let's go, has been an anchor in the amount of conversions that I've had over the last, like, from just being in business from the beginning all the way up until now, because that's one thing that I was always very, very passionate about, is not telling people to go this way. It's saying, hey, let's go this way together. There was something that I used to say all the time. I say it a little bit less now, but it's still in me. It's like, hey, I crawl with the crawlers, I walk with the walkers, and I run with the runners. And I promise you, you'll never be able to outrun me. And I'll have you questioning late at night whether or not I care more about your business and prosperity than you do. Right. And I think that that right there in itself is a testament to, like, hey, I might not be like the best coach or the best this or the best that, but it's very hard to find in the market at a reasonable investment point people who will actually care about your progress and success. And as long as I keep taking care of people, the man upstairs has definitely been taking care of me. So, with all of that being said, man, just a super quick recap of everything. Um, for most of the people listening to this, like, you've been making business decisions based on whatever showed up next, your feed, your algorithm, your proximity. And simply put, that's not a strategy. It's trial and error with a Wi-Fi connection. And the thing that would actually make you profitable right now, it probably feels like a step down. And that's exactly why you haven't done it, but we're telling you to do it. Like, just start looking that way. Just look long enough, and I promise you, you will see, some profit just kind of laying around, like, no guarantees, like, but still, just look that way, right? Your expertise isn't holding you back. Your standards for where to start are, right? You need 5 decisions to be made, not 47 courses. Who you are, who you serve, what vehicle actually fits you and your life, what model is going to work for you in your life, and what is going to fuel it. When those are locked in, most options literally disqualify themselves. The most expensive thing you can buy is another program that makes you feel informed but keeps you standing still. Clarity doesn't come from research, it comes from contact with reality. I promise you this: 5 paying clients, people paying you real money, will teach you more in a month than 6 months of consuming. Right? Smart people are the best at making an action sound like wisdom. They don't call it fear, they call it due diligence. And we're not saying don't do due diligence, but what we are saying is that if there's not someone with you saying, "Hey, I think we have enough due diligence at this point. Like, we've looked at this 50 different times. Like, it's time to make a decision to move on." Right? Like, small and profitable isn't a step down, it's the launch pad. And the big vision that you have, it's still the destination. You just can't skip the first step in order to get there, man. So with all of that said, with all the many TED talks and the rants and riffs that we had today on this awesome call, man, probably our best episode to date. Ryan, go ahead and bring it home, man.
Yeah, so it all comes back to this. Experts who start businesses have the lowest probability of profitability, not because they lack skill, but because they refuse to start where the money actually is. They skip the small profitable starting point because it doesn't match the level they see themselves at. And instead, they spend months or years spinning, researching, consuming, and evaluating, calling it strategy when it's really avoidance, avoiding decisions. But it doesn't have to be that way. The 5 decisions exist. The filter works. The question is whether you're willing to use it and whether you're willing to start where the money is instead of where your ego says you should be. 500 posts, 14 months, one client. That was trial and error. One partnership, 75,000 in 10 days. That was alignment. Same person, same skills, different filter. Take the quiz. It'll show you which of the 5 decisions you haven't made and where to start. It's 2 minutes. It's free. The link is in the description. And if you're done researching and ready to actually make these decisions with someone who's walked thousands of people through them, get on the wait list for Liftoff Lab. The link for that is in the description as well. Subscribe if you haven't done that. Hit the bell. We drop these episodes regularly. And on the next episode, we're diving into energy. If you've been grinding and burning out, it's not a discipline problem. It's that your personal operating system isn't compatible with your business model. We're going to break down what that means and how to fix it. We'll